All right, welcome everyone to another Getting Started webinar here at Mapbox. Today we're going to be covering how to get started with Mapbox Search. Specifically, we'll be covering some of our new search products called the Searchbox API and some of the consuming packages and libraries that make use of it. So I'm joined today, I'm Chris, developer evangelist at Mapbox. I'm joined today by Murat, Danny, and Dimi, who all hail from our search team. So they spend their time, making really robust search experiences, building the APIs that power all of this stuff, and then also building the technology that can, the packages that can consume it. So if you're not familiar with the rest of Mapbox's services, these four product areas pretty much cover what we do. But there's a lot more than maps and search here. So if you're building full-scale navigation apps, we have packages that help you do that. We also have data products derived from a lot of the other things that we work with. So go ahead and check out the rest of our offering. And we also have lots of getting started videos that we've been making for several months now. So whatever part of the Mapbox ecosystem you're interested in starting with, we have a video for you. And if we haven't gotten one yet, we would love to hear what else you would like us to cover in this series. This is a call to action to go check out the developer Discord. So this has been up and running since January and now has almost 4,000 members in it and lots of daily activity. So if you get stuck or if you just need help or you want to share something you're working on, there's a great community of Mapbox developers there who would love to participate in a conversation with you. So go ahead and check out the Discord. I'm in there pretty much every day and would love to hear from you as well. And last but not least, if you ever go to the docs if you go to the docs landing page, you'll see a whole search section. So this will give you a good overview of kind of the entire collection of search things that we offer. Like I said, today we'll be looking at the Searchbox API and some of the other things around it, but there's also address autofill, there are playgrounds, and there are the mobile SDKs. So all things related to search you can find over at docs.mapbox.com. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Murat, who's a product manager on the search team, and he's going to give you an overview of what we're going to talk about today. So take it away, Murat.
Hello. Thanks for joining today's session. So I'll like to talk a little bit about what is Mapbox Search, what we're doing in the scope of search, and our new product offering, Mapbox Search API. So today's agenda, will be introduction to a Searchbox API. And I'd like to highlight a couple of developer use cases, which I've found very interesting, especially for building an app that involves location search. I'd like to highlight those patterns and developer use cases for you. And we'll have a hands-on coding session where we like to help you to figure out what is the correct action steps for integrating Searchbox into your app. So Searchbox API, as I said, is a new product offering from Mapbox, and it brings all the data you can search into, and then it provides an API that you can integrate it into your app. So it's all-in-one location search for addresses, places, and points of interest. And it's best suited for if you need a broad interactive search that requires both addresses and POI data in your app. Searchbox API is going to be the best fit for you. Currently, it's been used by automotive customers, Toyota, GM, and Straightaway, and WB. And our current customers are using it for navigation scenarios, delivery scenarios. And for example, the Straightaway use case over here, it's a delivery app. You can pick up multiple delivery locations. The app automatically organizes the best route for you, and it's all powered by our current Searchbox API. So let's go through a couple of use cases where a developer may use our Searchbox API. The first one is the most generic one. It's the interactive search. So basically, you have an app and you want to build an interactive search for location. So typically, you want to find a specific point on a map. So the question for the end user is where's the nearest Starbucks, or how to locate a specific address. And for the perspective of the search user that you're building for, a couple of scenarios. So the navigation user wants to choose a location, or a food ordering app user chooses delivery location. or a ride-sharing user wants to select a drop-off location. So those kind of interactions and searching for either address or POI in the map is the number one case, developer case that we'll cover, and we call interactive search. So in the hands-on coding session, we'll talk about how you use this search suggestions and how you do how we can retrieve the data for a specific choice from the user in the following section. So the second use case is hot buttons, what we call them. So in this case, you don't type anything as a search user, but you just want to click a hot button and get suggested results. For example, a search user will ask, what coffee shops around me? So, for example, a driver needs to find the closest gas station in a navigation session, or a traveler is looking for the nearest hotels around a specific destination location. These are all hot button scenarios. And again, the biggest difference is there is not a search string here. There is only a location and a category selection by the user, and you provide suggested results. This is the number 2. So number 3 is reverse geocoding. And in this case, you are pointing a specific location on a map, and you just try to figure out what is available around the location. For example, a social app user wants to select a location for their post, like tagging a post with nearby POIs or addresses, or a photo app user wants to tag an image with location name. So typical scenarios involves content tagging, checking in for social app scenarios, and similar things like that. So in this case, again, you have a proximity, a specific point, and when you select this, we suggest you relate the nearby points or POIs or addresses around that specific location. Again, if I want to highlight the product highlights for Searchbox API, it combines addresses, places, POIs, everything you may want to search on a map. And it comes with autocomplete support with ranking based on user intent and proximity. So our ranking logic and ranking models will take care of turning and understanding the user intent into relevant results. Thus, it's all done to us. It also provides search along the route. It's a very interesting feature. So think about a navigation scenario or a food delivery scenario. For example, a delivery person like to point a location on its map, so you don't want to deviate from the current map to save time. And you can suggest POIs along the route, which is exactly it's a very beneficial feature for this. Also, you can retrieve some basic metadata for your searches, like coordinates, addresses, arrival points, opening times, and similar metadata like this. We offer JavaScript library and SDKs for native apps, so you can build very quickly. And we support multiple languages in search queries. Those were the product highlights. And from now on, we're going to show you how you can start working with Searchbox API. And we can also answer follow-up questions.
Terrific. Let me jump over from there. Thanks, Mark. Great introduction. Yep. Let me share my screen really quickly, and let's start talking about how we take advantage of all the new tools and the Searchbox API.
Hey, Danny, just real quick, I forgot to announce to people, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll be the one who can kind of relay them if there's a good moment to interject. So just drop your questions in the chat, and we'll take it from there if you have anything for our presenters. Thanks.
Terrific. Thanks, Chris. The first thing I'm going to show you is one of our playgrounds, which actually was built by Chris. So credit to him for a really fun playground. And this is a great way to show off all the capabilities in an easy to use, easy to learn form of how to access the API. There are two parts of the API that we should start talking about, and that's the step of getting suggestions as you type, and then once your user has made their selection, retrieving all the information about it. Up here, those are two different separate endpoints that we call suggestion retrieve, we'll kind of walk through how they look, how they're formatted, and how the responses come back. So let's start out.
Andy, can I ask you very quickly to zoom in your web browser just a little bit? I think
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
resolution. Yeah, it'll just make it a little bit easier for people to screen. You might need to make it wider, yeah.
Yeah, let's try that.
Okay, thanks so much. Just wanted to make sure this shows up in a way that people can see the fine print here.
Terrific. And as Murat mentioned, you have the ability to search for addresses and places and POIs, and even drill in from there. Categories and brands. So let's start out by just doing a really basic address search. And let's search for the White House. So 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. As I type, it's offering me suggestions. And over here on the right, you can see the form that the suggest call takes, where we're passing in our query. And over here, you'll be able to see broken out all the different parameters that I'm going to talk about, as well as some advanced ones. Each of the calls requires a session that's effectively used to track an individual user's requests all the way through each of their suggestions. You'll define the session token on your end, and of course your access token as well. And then looking down at the format that the suggestions come back in, it's a pretty easy to use format. And let's just kind of quickly touch on some of the data that gets returned. Our name is what we're showing up in the top part of the suggestion here. In this case, it'll be an address, but we'll look at some POIs examples as well. Our feature type, in this case, it could be any of the different types of data that you have selected and narrowed into, which could be different place levels, POIs, or addresses. And then our place formatted is our second line here. Well, yes, actually, I think we're showing full address there, rather. So then the context can be particularly helpful when you're doing more granular inspection into the suggestion. So this has each of the components that make up an address broken out into their subparts, including some abbreviations, say, for example, country code or the ISO codes for region. And so that, you imagine a variety of different applications that might need that, particularly if you're trying to storage of these components in a database, which would, all right. Let's see, Maki can kind of be a fun one too. Here we're displaying the Makis next to these, and that I think is a nice touch to the interface. All right, so sort of transitioning back, let's talk about step 2. When you make your selection, it will trigger the retrieve call. And what we're basically doing is passing the ID over to the retrieve API. And when it comes back now, you'll have some extra information. And most importantly, your coordinates and also the accuracy of those coordinates. And so that's the moment that we'll trigger plotting it on the map, fly the map over, and zoom into our selection. Cool. Now let's go a little bit deeper into the capabilities here. Let's imagine that we're on a road trip. I'm going to go up the California coast, and I want to find a great coffee spot along the way. So let's jump down here, and we'll do what we call a search along route. So in this case, I'm going to start out by defining our route. And this is in the form of generating a polyline. It's basically GeoJSON geometry that we'll use to do our search. I'm going to start by saying, all right, we're going to go from, let's go to Napa, California, and San Jose, California. Oh, Costa Rica. That's going to be a long one. Let's try again. There we go. And let's add our route. Now I'll go up here and I'll start searching for coffee. I'm going to pick our coffee category. And here we go. We're flying over. We should see our route. And here's all of our different coffee spots rendered. This Dash Coffee near Fremont looks pretty interesting. We can kind of drill into the response data there. Let's see what we've got.
Hey, Danny, real quick, we have another request to zoom in a little bit because I think it's still a little bit hard for people to see the text on the screen, if you
Absolutely.
mind.
How did we do?
Sorry?
Oh, can you see it now?
I think that's better. Yeah,
okay.
I think that's better.
All right.
And then another question that just came through, is it possible to search among tiles? I assume that they're talking about searching within a specific tile, but I would assume the answer is no, but I want to pass it along to you.
That's not built into Searchbox, but there is something that might help you to do that. Maybe we could even drill into your use case a little bit. So we're able to set a proximity point, and we can do that in this case by using these two icons here. One of them is neat that the let's see, in this case, let's do an experiment here. I'm going to try click that and see if we can regenerate our list. And I think we'll get a different set of responses. Cool. There we go. Awesome. So in this case, I have my whole route, but maybe as I'm driving along the route, I would want to set my proximity point to get a new set of coffee shops as I'm moving. And so that's a good way to drill in. Now, the proximity point is also really valuable if you're not doing search along route. And that would be a good way to try to find the nearest points to you, that match your query. So similar to, say, for example, if you were able to identify the coordinates of your tile, reducing the, say, likelihood that you would get matches outside of that. Now, in this case, Searchbox API is designed in a way that it's meant to not be restricted to, say, for example, right now, depending on my application, I might not be trying to search locally. Maybe I'm searching for Paris. So for high prominence features, like a major city, you would still be able to do that. Now this reminds me to talk about one other way that you might be able to isolate your searching that could be particularly useful, which would be to set a bounding box. So you could also take the bounding box coordinates of your, or find the coordinates of your tile. And this actually would restrict your result set to be within the tile. Cool. Chris, and I guess I'll go out and say, please ask any follow-up questions, or if I could drill into that some more. While we're kind of over here in our advanced section, I'll mention origin, which we touched on for a second. This is how it's going to display your distance calculation as you're searching. So how far are you from the locations? And routing profile is neat as well, in that this will make kind of an improved set of matches for you based on whether you're walking or riding a bike or driving. And limit simply changes the number of results that you're surfaced. So as I drag this up, you'll see the total number of recommendations will increase, assuming that we have matches for them. Cool. All right. I'd love to pause for a second there and just see if anyone else had more questions about the playground or kind of the nature of the suggest and retrieve parameters. All right. Well, while I wait, I will offer one other cool thing. Since I was talking about the bounding box, let's make one and see what we can get. So imagine I'll go over here. I'm sure we'll get a cool coffee shop over here. Let's see what we get. Cool. Oh, all right, I guess I've got to update my proximity point. Interesting. I was expecting that to show me things only in the bounding box. So we'll have to look into what explains that. But this makes more sense. Maybe your proximity point must be within the bounding box. But so pretty interesting here. Yeah, so I think if I were trying to solve the problem you described with a tile set, a combination of proximity point and the bounding box are probably good routes to consider. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about how I would implement this in a web application. And so we've got the Searchbox API, which comes in, or rather, there's our Searchbox API documentation page. We actually have created two different sets of web components, which will be great to talk about also, that are part of Search.js. And so the Search.js Searchbox components come in ones that are easily usable in any web application, and also React components. And I want to talk a little bit about first how you might go about implementing using the web components. And to kind of talk about, we've gone for this strategy here. Here I'm showing a map of Japan. We've embedded a search box in it. And in order to make the experience work, you would reference the Search.js library, the Web.js version, and we'll go down here, and you'll end up. Imagine that there's probably some familiarity with Mapbox. There's a library called Mapbox GL.js, which we're also using to create the map container itself. And then down here, what we do is we'll create a new Mapbox search box, which is that component web component that we've been talking about. We'll instantiate it and we'll add it to the map. And so fairly light amount of code in order to pull off this magic. Within here, we're defining our language and country, but all of the different optional parameters that we were talking about, like bounding box and proximity point, could also be passed in through this. And as we search, which here's our suggestions coming through in Japan, and we're zooming right in. So that's pretty neat, and should be pretty universal in the way that we've designed it to add on to an existing application. The next thing I'd like to talk about is our React component. So here I'm in the Mapbox Search.js docs over in the React reference for Searchbox. And this is neat because you can work with a React component that should be fairly kind of familiar in style. Here I have kind of an example function that we've imagined are creating a form here, and you're able to actually just drop the Searchbox component directly into your code there. And so let's take a look at what that might look like in a really simplistic React application. And I'll try and do this side by side and make this larger. Chris, question for you: is my code screen large enough?
Yeah, I think it looks great. Yeah, go for it. Terrific.
Okay, cool. So here, what we're doing is we're including our search box component. We're importing that, and this one's a pretty simplistic implementation. But let's see, what do I want to show you here? Let's go right down here and let's look at how we're using the component. So first, we've included our map container, which is just a div, defining the element that we're going to insert our map into. And separately up top, we've included our search box component here, and we're linking ourselves to the map itself through this property. Now let's see. Let's actually see it in action. So over here on the left, let's say that I was looking for coffee near Georgetown. Cool. Let's go check it out. And here we should fly the map. There we go. So pretty straightforward, I think. And we're fairly early in this, so we'd love to get feedback on your experience trying to integrate these components and to hear the kind of features or additional functionality that you'd like to see us add and how we can make this work for your applications. So let me take a pause there, and maybe we can field some questions or talk about specific types of projects folks are working on.
If anyone has a question, they can type it into the chat and I'll relay it. But I have one in the meantime because I actually haven't implemented this React component from Mapbox Search.js yet. But is the fly to actually part of it, or did you have to do that on your own, or is that just what happens when you click a suggestion?
Yeah, absolutely. So in fact, I think it would be fun to have Mark join if Mark's on the call, and he can talk a little bit about the various ways it can be implemented. But I believe that, and actually, yeah, let's let him
jump in for a second.
Cool.
Yeah, the fly to animation it's part of the search box component. So when you click on suggestion, it'll fly you to that part of the map. Obviously, you have control to add additional animations or features to that. If you wanted to drop a pin on that, you could orchestrate that as well because you have access to the map. And in the code that Danny's sharing on his screen, you also have access to the response objects coming back from both the suggest and retrieve calls. So you'll be able to tap into that data, grab the coordinates if you need to, and code whatever you want to do with those.
All right, excellent. Thanks. Doesn't look like we have questions in the chat, so I think we can move on. Thanks.
Terrific. Chris, let me hand it back over to you, unless there's any other questions you had for me.
I don't think so. So Murat, this concludes our run of show for today? Oh, there was a quick question. Okay, so before we move on, somebody in the chat asked, do you provide a storybook to test props? So is there a React storybook analog to the component you just showed?
I think that would be a great add-on for us. I'd love for us to make one.
Okay, so you heard it here first. They've committed to shipping it in maybe a couple weeks. So
all right. Well, we'd love to reach out and share it with you. Cool.
Anton, drop into Discord and follow up with me on that in a few weeks, and I'll keep them motivated to fulfill that idea because it's a great idea. Okay, no, I think that'll wrap us up then. If we so by all means, find us in the Discord if you want to try out Searchbox API. Check out the documentation, check out the playground, check out the location helper if you need help, getting bounding boxes and things like that. And we're happy you joined us today, and we would love to see you back at the next Getting Started webinar. So good luck with all your adventures and have fun building with Mapbox tools. We'll see you at the next one.